cash is king, right? And certainly kids who get it for their birthdays and the holidays, they know that. And of course, they want to spend it. They want to spend it right away on things like toys and candy, games, you name it.
Yeah, grown-ups too.
Well, yeah, that is true. Saving or investing is probably the last thing on their minds. And I mean, come on, they are kids after all. But here's the thing. They can still make that money work for them with companies that they know and love. When I read about this, I was like, I want to find out more. Maya Corbic is a chartered public accountant. She's also the author of From Piggy Banks to Stocks, the ultimate guide for young investors. And she joins us now. Thanks for your time today, Maya.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on the show.
So you're hearing us have a little bit of a laugh because, you know, this is a totally foreign concept, not just for kids, but for a lot of parents too. So I think we should start with this idea that, you know, kids are all about immediate gratification. How do you get them to even begin to think about their future?
So absolutely, yes. You know, most people want to spend their money as soon as they have it. But I think the big thing is to try to teach them that they don't need to spend all of it. It's okay to spend, but spend mindfully, and then take a little portion of that money as soon as it comes in, whether it's from allowance or monetary gift, put it aside, save it, and then eventually invest it. And they could be investing it into companies, as you said earlier, that they know and understand, companies whose products they already use. I'm going to use Apple, for example. This is not advice for anybody to invest into Apple, but a lot of kids nowadays have cell phones or they use iPads. So, you know, by them investing that money into Apple, they are technically part owners of Apple. And that can be really cool for some kids.
That is kind of, it's funny you say that. I thought back now when I'm trying to remember when my kids or one of my daughters turned 16 and we bought her stock in Disney because they'd grown up, of course, with Disney characters. The same sort of example you're giving with Apple, but having to do with that. And there is a sense of ownership in that, right? Even for a little child, a little kid, someone 12, 13 years old begins to understand that's worth something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So my kids actually own some Disney stocks, and unfortunately right now we're losing money on them.
There you
go. But we're hanging on to them. We're hoping that hopefully Disney will do better in the future. But, you know, I've bought stocks for my kids when Roblox was going public, and Roblox was all the rage with, you know, at the time they were tweens. They were like 12, 13, and I ended up buying Roblox shares because Roblox was going public. And you know, I to be honest, being a CPA, I didn't really analyze the company, and I knew that, okay, maybe this is not the smartest purchase, but it was more like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for them to learn about initial public offering, how that works, and, you know, just get them interested in the world of investing. And so it was, I guess, it wasn't a crazy expensive lesson, but it was, you know, they still have Roblox, but again, it's not doing as well, but at least like we had an opportunity to talk about how companies go public and what happens during that time.
What age would you say is appropriate? Because I'm thinking, you know, my daughter, whatever cash she gets goes into a wallet. I have some put in a bank account for her, but even that is, her brain can't, she thinks the money's gone. Do you know what I'm saying? So what age?
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yes. Like the concept of the bank is a bit too out there for her. So stocks, I mean, that would be other level, I think. So what age, Maya, and how do you kind of get them into that mindset that it hasn't disappeared?
Right. So, I mean, the best thing is to start them very young. So I would say as soon as they start asking you to buy them things, at that point in time, they demonstrate that they understand money is used as an exchange to buy things. Or if you see them playing store. And so at that point in time, you really want to teach them that any money that comes in, they pay themselves first by saving a portion, and then they can, you know, spend or donate the rest. And they say that 95% of what we do out of habit. So my goal with my kids has always been to put that on autopilot so that one day when they become adults and they get their first paycheck, they don't just go out there and spend it all. So as they get older, of course, you know, as you said, it changes, you know, but I would say, like, you know, if you can get them early, that's the best thing to do. But if not, there are still ways to engage them and promote saving and actually encourage them to save.
Don't you kind of have to get the parents engaged first? Because I'm thinking, like, this is a foreign concept to me, right? Like I said, so how do I teach my child about it? I need to learn first, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. So absolutely, there are a lot of parents that come to me and they say, "I didn't learn when I was younger, so how do I do this?" So one thing I like to do with my kids is that, for example, like I just recently bought a nice designer purse, but I could have bought it outright. But the point was to show my teenage daughter that I've put aside a certain portion of money that I've been earning for the last several months. And now it's like, okay, I'm able to afford this purse. So it's setting the example. But also if you want to encourage them, like you could be matching what they save. So let's say they save $10. You say, okay, I'm going to give you another $10 for saving that. Or, if they reach a certain milestone, you could celebrate. And it could be just as like, taking them to the movies or for ice cream, or you could play, I don't know, hide and seek in the dark at home or something like that, just to celebrate achieving the certain saving milestone.
I would ask one thing.
that.
I imagine you reach a point, and this is funny. This came up when we did our question earlier, right? The idea, but I want my money. So you've saved it up, and then for whatever reason, you reach, I don't know, 15, 16 years of age, as one caller had said, and he's saying, okay, I put my money in a savings bond, or I'd saved up some. Now I want to take it out. When the advice should be, no, you don't understand. Leave it in now. It's going to be worth a lot more when you really need it, like when you're old enough and you want to buy a home. Do you give up on that message at some point when they're going to say, look, I understand my money's in a bank or in a savings account, but I want to take it out. There's something I really, really want.
I honestly think it's important to talk to them from the time when you start investing that money up until, they're teenagers. So I have two teenagers, and that's one thing that I've been telling them all along. I talk about the rising cost of real estate and how most kids nowadays will not be able to own their own home. And I talk to my kids and I say, all this money that has been invested on your behalf, this is the money that you could potentially use to buy yourself a home. And then they could house hack, meaning that, when they buy that home, they can have somebody living in the basement that can help them, pay it off faster. Or, I tell them this is the money, and I show them they're actually free online interest calculators that where you can put in like the interest rate that your investment is earning as well as the inflation rate. And I like to show them this and play around with these calculators and tell them, I'm like, this is how much you have in investments right now. If you leave it for another 10 or 20 years, this is what it's going to grow into. So, and I also talk to them about there are so many people out there that don't really like the jobs they're doing. And that money could be their freedom money. So I, encourage them to think in those ways, but I do repeat those, I guess, things very often. Sometimes they roll their eyes at me, but they understand what I mean by now because they're older.
Okay, these are good tips.
Yeah.
I love that idea of, when I imagine a child who can't understand what interest is or compound interest is, and you show them, hey, that money you have in there, look what it will be worth in 10 or 20 years from now. That's got to be an eye-opener. That's good.
Well, I would imagine also just actually seeing it, right? Like if you go into the account and you show them, okay, so you put in $100 and then and they see the amount going up, so that it's not this like, nebulous thing that they can't actually wrap their brains around.
I think it's great.
But, and Maya, again, any age is a good age to start kids on this.
It's never too late. The sooner, the better. But if you haven't had a chance to talk to your kids, up until now is a good time to start. And I always tell parents, it doesn't need to be anything complicated. It's like, use everyday events and talk to your kids about money. Sometimes we shy away from talking to them about something because we think, they're just kids. We shouldn't talk to them about mortgage or about property tax bill that we got. But those are perfect opportunities because like I just recently with our property tax bill, there was a breakdown that shows where our property taxes go. And so we had this really interesting conversation and everything, it's just don't let the money be taboo.
These are all great points.
All right. The book is called From Piggy Banks to Stocks, The Ultimate Guide for Young Investors. That was Maya Corbic, a CPA. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Maya.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Okay. There you go. Some good tips there. You have trouble with your daughter with money? Does she?
So she does get money from grandparents and different, so we had a...
You have a talk?
I had a bad situation lately. I'm reticent to talk about it because she's probably in the car on the way home with Dave right now and will be. But anyway, so she had been stashing it in a wallet. And at one point I needed to pay the babysitter and I didn't have cash and I borrowed from.
Tell me you replaced it.
I hadn't replaced it in time before it went very badly. So, and I bribed her. I was like, I'll give you a little extra to make up for having borrowed it.
I miss my parenting days.